Hello, everyone. It's Nikki, Batgirl D'Angelo for Star Citizen Addicts Anonymous, and I'm here again in the player universe, the persistent universe, and in this case, 2.1. Star Citizen Alpha 2.1 went live yesterday. They decided to start going live on a day before or a couple of days before the weekend. Is this a perfect release? No, it's not. But there is some wonderful pieces that are in it. Now, before we go any further, let's stop here. Well, here is a excerpt from the letter from the chairman from November 6th of 2014 when the Star Citizen campaign hit $60 million. It's about unlocking the Aegis Bulldog, which became the Vanguard. It says, strike hard from a distance, the Bulldog, a recent design from Aegis, has quickly become Earth's premier deep space fighter. Deep space fighters are typically used to pursue engagements in outlying areas when support from a carrier is not available. Bulldogs are usually flown by ground and station-based naval forces and are widely used by militia squadrons, specifically designed to operate from planetary bases and engage targets up to a star system's distance. The fighter trades some maneuverability for extended supply of fuel, munitions, as well as basic survival accommodations for a pilot and radar operator. The Bulldog's RIO, or RIO as they say in the Navy, operates a turret, the ship's missile loadout optionally, and its highly advanced sensor suite. The distinct scanning array gives the dog a particular advantage when fighting in and around an obstacle such as an asteroid field or nebula. Finally, the Bulldog is known to be an extremely sturdy spacecraft with multiple backup systems not commonly found in single-seat ships. Stories of Bulldogs limping back to base with a single engine and half the fuselage exposed to the vacuum have become common as the battle against the Vanguard was heated up. So I'm going to take us back to the beginning where I'm waking up so I could talk a little bit. So that description of the Bulldog, which is now the Vanguard, it really did... It moved me in a certain way. I immediately started in my head seeing a P-63, P-61, the Black Widow. And the Black Widow was a night fighter, a long-distance fighter. It served America in the end of the war in the Pacific in World War II. So I got myself over here an Aegis Dynamics Vanguard Harbinger, but of course they're going to give me the Warden since that's the one that's done. And I decided to take it out tonight and see just how good is this vessel. Did it deliver? And in a lot of ways, it missed the mark. Some ways, an advantage for us. In other ways, a major disadvantage for us. So, over here in this section of the Point Alisar space station, I will go out and take a look at my Warden. So here we are coming up the stairs, and it should be over to our left, and there she is. She is a tremendously large fighter. But she's mimicking some of the fighters from World War II, specifically the Me-110, the Mosquito, and the P-61 Black Widow. I keep on saying that kind of wearily because I don't know if it was the P-61 or the P-63. I had an opportunity to see the early renders of this when I was in Santa Monica last year, right around this time, and immediately fell in love with it. Oh, here you see me stupidly fall off the platform and have to jump up, but we'll take the opportunity to talk. I fell in love with it, but I tried to guide them more towards the Black Widow look with the big glass behind. But they actually did make a wonderful fighter. I have a couple of pet peeves with it. The most major one is the huge ass gun and under the nose. Still being on a tiny little pivot, and I'm going to say this, CIG, start mounting them to the fuselage. I know you want to make the Care Bears that use mouse and keyboard. Sorry guys, I don't really mean that. But I'm happy, but guns like this need to be mounted in the fuselage because there is no way in this world or any world that a gun that big would be able to hang on a tiny little pivot. All right, so the missiles are a secondary source of pet peeve for me as we walk around the ship and show off some of its features. They really do need to be inside of bays if you're going to be using it as a long-range fighter. I know this isn't supposed to be too stealthy, but it is supposed to have the opportunity to maybe replenish itself, maybe not. I'm not sure about that. But nonetheless, I think that maybe, just maybe, the missiles should be in base. Over here is a door that won't open. I believe that door is for some kind of engine compartment or power plant compartment. I don't know what's back there. The thrusters on the wings, of course. But these folks are designing game ships, not real life ships. So, you know, extra space, not a big deal. I would have redesigned that back a little bit more. But in here, there's even more design. Well, you could have a lot more criticism. There's really no place to sit down in here that I know of. Maybe there is later on. This is a station to man the, I guess you would call this the secondary systems. Like maybe this is where the Rio sits, the radar interceptor officer. Yeah, that's what I think he's doing back here. And he's manning all sorts of different systems. And of course, this hasn't been enabled yet. The ship is, I mean, face it, Star Citizen is an alpha, not everything is done. There's an armory or a gun rack over there. There's beds over here, but of course, there's beds and there is a bathroom and a counter, but no real seats to eat if you were going to make yourself something to eat. So let's get in the turret, take a look at what we have here. I never got a chance to use it in combat, so I don't know if it's going to work. But of course, we're at Point Sarsa, so we can move it around. In the hangar, we wouldn't have been able to. Yeah, it seems to have good view, right? There's a guy pulling up. Maybe we could... Oh, you can't really fire at him because you have that stupid... Yeah, another bad design element over there. Alright, so let's get out of here. Let's take a look into the cockpit. And the seat, of course, in the cockpit comes back like the Retaliator seat and like some Origin Jumpworks designs, the 300 series. And of course, this shares some other things with the 300 series. The never-ending overheating. Alright, well, when I say overheating, I mean overheating of weapons. So that's it for our basic run around of the ship. Let's see if we could see the outside a little bit in just 1 second. So I had an amazing time with this ship inside of Vanguard Swarm. And it's easy to say that this ship is probably overpowered at this point, but they really wanted this ship to be able to kick butt. But I think that in its present form, it not only kicks butt, but it takes names. I mean, if you get in front of this ship and that is a Vanguard that's being piloted by anything other than an incompetent pilot. So I'm even saying if you're a little bit better than a novice to average type pilot, you could probably decimate people that are in front of you. This is an overpowered fighter at this point. But it does have its liabilities. Unlike what was stated inside of the description of what they wanted the fighter to be, this is a very, it's not a very durable fighter at all. It does get tore up real fast. And I'm sure that's something that they're going to work on. This is only the first day that it's in the game, or the first 24-hour period that it's in the game. So give it time for them to actually look at it and start tweaking things. In fact, if you want to be a god in Vanguard Swarm or co-op Vanguard Swarm right now, get your Vanguard, if you own one, in there right now before the nerf bat swings and this ship is taken down a notch, which it really needs to be. The ship is much more maneuverable than it needed to be. Remember, they said it traded maneuverable for durability. And it's much less durable. And like I said, I hope I said this already, and if not, you're going to hear it and you're going to be like, what? That huge ass cannon that's underneath the nose is useless. In the beginning, when Arena Commander first came out and people were flying their 300 series ships inside of Arena Commander, all you would hear is system overheating, system overheating, system overheating, system overheating. And that's essentially what happens here if you fire that gun. That'll be fixed, but when the gun does hit, it's like a machine gun raking across the wings of, wow, that's just a beautiful ship, of the wings or the fuselage of your enemy. So it's not really that good of a gun. However, those 4 kick-ass cannons in the nose, which being nose-mounted means they're going to be highly accurate, which is amazing and I love. they they're like the hammer of Thor. They're like the lightning bolt of Odin. I guess that's what I mean. Zeus. Let's say Zeus. Okay, but the ship still does handle like a dog, which is why you saw me die there. I can tell you how maneuverable it is, but being able to pull your nose around doesn't mean you're actually turning the ship. So you really need to pay attention to speed and work the throttle when you're inside of an area like this, the asteroid field. They also, in their description, said that you'd be more easily able to navigate an asteroid field. It has these systems and all this other stuff. Yeah, that was early visions of the ship that really didn't make it into the game, because how would you model that, right? How would they model that? So I hit an asteroid there and I died, but I do survive another 12 waves before I even see death, okay? And then finally I have to turn off the game and get myself to work. Now, I have found that missiles are still useless. I'm very disappointed that the ship is in the game without all systems working. As you notice, I do not have a target readout, and I do not have my ship's damage readout. I'm trying to see what I was doing here. The guns are inaccurate, and they seem to fire off in the distance and not hit their targets, which means the sights might be off. Nonetheless, you're very quickly able to overcome this and start flying this the way pilots flew fighters in World War I and World War II, and essentially fly it with instinct. And that's something I wound up doing here. I paid attention to my velocity vector. I watched the throttle. I mean, watch, I'm in a turn. I pull my throttle back, and then I push it back up when I'm going. So you see that velocity vector coming back up a lot more rapidly. The velocity vector is the little carrot. It would be a carrot in a real fighter, but it's a circle that follows itself around. I had a kick-ass time in this ship. I think it's wonderful in its current iteration, and I know it's going to get nerfed. But flying this today has told me one thing. Roberts Space Industries, or I should say Cloud Imperium Games, are really serious about delivering us those ships that they promised us. And this one will be tweaked, and over time it will become that Mosquito ME-110 Black Widow hybrid that they were thinking about in the beginning. And I'm really, really, really excited about that. Because when this is done, that means that they're going to bring the Saber into the game, which is loosely based on this ship. And that, I'm sure, will be one of my favorite ships also. So it is no shock that I am really tied or really in love with the Aegis Dynamic ships. The couple of things that I have that I really don't like about this ship on the outside, the missiles really need to be in bays, and I hope that Ben hears that and talks to Chris, and they decide to get the designer of the ship to design bays for that. And why? I don't know. I just think it would look better with them in bays. And that gun in the front, I know that you Care Bears that use mouse and keyboard really love your gimbaled weapons, and I understand that. It really is one of the biggest benefits of using mouse and keyboard. And I'm not a proponent at all of the argument that mouse and keyboard is an easier method. I am just playing with you when I say Care Bears. I can't look at something that big being hung on something that small and them being that, that confident that that's the way it would work in real life. Yeah, maybe we're holding them to a different standard, but we are trying to hold them to a standard of keeping this to be a more realistic space sim, right? We already have had those ones that are unrealistic. We want this one to be more realistic. And something that big really needs to be mounted in the fuselage. And if you have any questions about that, look at the A-10. Look at the GAU-8 inside of the A-10. Now, the plane is built around that cannon. When you fire that cannon, the plane shudders. And I was watching something that was put up by Pappy Boyington. Maybe he'll put a link to it here inside of the comment section of this video, but he had a History Channel I guess it was a History Channel documentary on the Mosquito. When they put the 6-pound cannon in that, the whole plane shuddered, and it actually lost like 10 or 12. I guess they were using miles per hour back then every time it fired that cannon. So what I'm trying to say is that I don't care that this is a video game. Chris said he wanted it to be more realistic. I think the gun should be mounted to the fuselage, and the plane should be built around it. All right, but outside of that, that's my pet peeves. I don't have many others. I know they'll start fleshing other things out. When the interior of the ship begins to matter, they'll flesh that out a little bit more. This is a first, let's just say this is version 0.9 coming to us inside the PTU. We haven't seen version 1.0 yet. But so far, I'm a Vanguard lover. I'm on board, and I'm glad I purchased the Vanguard. Not glad I purchased the Harbinger. But I'm glad, I'm happy, I'm satisfied with my purchase. And at this point, being a Vanguard and a Saber owner, all I can say is that things look bright in the future. Now let's talk about the design of it. Both this and the Saber have swing wings, and you ask why? Why do they have swing wings inside of a game that's space-based? Well, if you remember the description, these are supposed to be able to work from forward bases. Those forward bases may be platforms, space stations, they may be asteroids, and they may be planets with atmospheres. So with that said, if you're in atmosphere, you're going to need airfoils, and you're going to need to slow something this heavy down. And yes, they could just use fans and stuff like that, like the Constellation and the Aurora, but Aegis Dynamics chose to use wings. And that leads to my last and very last pet peeve. Alright, let me lean back. We have 3 freaking aircraft so far with swing wings that land atmospherically, which leads you to believe that these things are going to have to land on a runway. Why the hell do they have skids instead of wheels? That's my only question. And I'm not going to hold them to it. You know, I'm going to take things a little bit more lightheartedly at this point because it is a video game. But they try so hard to make everything realistic, and then there's as many continuity issues with the way that they think about ship design as there is with George Lucas writing Star Wars films. Sorry guys, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so I just took a pot shot out there, but I'm probably going to have to go pay penance to myself for that statement. But there's these continuity issues about we want to be realistic, but we're making these things stupidly not be consistent, with each other. If you have a swing wing, you need to have rolling wheeled landing gear, not skids. It doesn't make sense. Also, skids really don't work on aircraft carriers. I worked on an aircraft carrier. When you have to move a ship, it needs to be rolled. And yes, you're 1,000 years in the future. But the designs in this game are based on ships from the 50s, from the 40s, from the 60s, and all of them had wheels and whatever. Nonetheless, this is my review of the Vanguard, and I am on board. Thank you so much, CIG, for giving me another great fighter. I do have my issues with it. I know that they'll be worked out over time. But wow, that's all I can say is wow. This is a fighter that I am happy I spent money on. And with that said, folks, you all be safe out there, and I'll talk to you soon.